Hey y'all, welcome back to Jackass of All Trades. Appreciate you showing up here today and having a little bit of messing around with us. So what we got going on today here? I'm working on a pond project in my yard, and I need a 2-inch by 1.25 inch bushing, and I can get them in, I can probably buy it, but why buy it when you can make it, and drive a whole bunch of machinists on the internet crazy with my my hack job machining that we're going to do. So what I've done here last night, my wife and I were working on some epoxy project stuff for her, and I decided to fill this 2-inch cap. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2-inch cap, I'm going to thread it up into here, chuck it up in the lathe, and bore this, and basically cut a 1.5 inch iron pipe thread in there. And I'm not I'm not a machinist. I'm figuring this out on my own, so I'm not going to be putting a taper on it. But I don't care if it leaks, because it's on the it's in the pump, or pardon me, on the pump, submerged in the pond. So just not going to concern myself with it, and have a little fun. Lift things up here a little bit. You're interested in seeing the chuck, not this chuck. So I've looked it up. What we've got, the 1.25 inch NPT hole bore size is 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna chuck up this this piece here, and it's all plastic, so we're gonna go quite easy. Now I put it nice tight up against the face of the chuck, and it's gonna be square. And then we're gonna wind this in here, so we got something to hold, and it'll kind of self-tighten, but we'll back it out as we need to. So let's change things up here a little bit. Back the tool out of the way, and I'm gonna have to take my live center out. I'll probably wind up jiggling you around here a little bit, because I got the camera sitting on top of my tailstock here. There she is. Live center out. And we'll get you a little closer to the subject. One of these days I'm going to invest in a bit of a stand, but for now this is what we got. So 1.5 inches. We're not too terribly concerned about accuracy. Again, it's kind of all loosey-goosey. So I'm going to use a spade blade. And smack around the camera a little bit. And we'll see how it goes. All right. And I always, because this lathe switch, I don't know, is right here, forward and reverse. There's no brake. It's kind of an older Sharp Industries lathe. I always unplug it, because all you do is bump this and you get yourself all chewed up. So I gotta go plug it in. All right. And that's clicking along pretty fast, but it's going to be just fine. Quite a difference between the epoxy and the ABS. I think I ran out of travel on the tailstock. So we're gonna have to back you up here. and move you forward. Bash you around here a little bit more. That should do what we need to do. See exactly how awful that was. Okay, not too bad. We have a hole that we can deal with. I'm gonna just get this out of the way here and face this off so I'm not dealing with these pieces of the hex or the square that was there, and we'll get a thread in here. All right. All you machinists out there are just screaming at your monitor, I know, but it's part of the fun. All right, I'm just going to face this off here, and then we'll get set up to make a thread. Okay. Actually, really see the transition between the ABS and the epoxy. It's kind of interesting. All right, we'll get a thread set up. Now, I know from my experience, iron pipe thread is 14 threads per inch, and we'll have to set up a little boring bar, a little thread head, and we'll run her through until we get the correct diameter. Actually, that means I got to scrounge around a 1.25 inch thread for testing, which I'll have to do. Okay, so found my threading attachment. Earlier on, I said threads per inch were 14. No, that's for 3/4 pipe and down. It's 11.5 threads per inch for 1 inch pipe through to 1 inch pipe through to 2 inch, and then it changes at 2.5 and and so forth. But that's the that's the challenge with being out of the trade for a while. You tend to forget what you think you thought you used to know, and you don't know it anymore. So it's this is kind of why I do this stuff. Kind of keep my brain juices running, so to speak, so I don't get atrophy. So I'll take you to the camera and show you how I set up the transmission. Okay, so like I said, you got 14 threads per inch. Pardon me, 11.5 threads per inch. Got to get my head straight. So I've set the feed to be on a thread. That's what we got going on here, which will drive this feed screw rather than this feed screw. This feed screw is simply for advancing and whatnot. This feed screw will collect a half nut and advance this in the correct ratio to the rotation to get 11.5 threads per inch. Set the transmission up. You want to get, for your threading, 11.5 threads per inch. So we need 5 and B, and so that's what I've done here. I got B and 5. And it's kind of an older lathe. So when you're running this feed here, underneath this cover, there's a little oil reservoir. No sense in opening it now because I've oiled it. And that'll keep these gears lubed up. So I'll get some speed adjusted. And let me just let pause. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so here in the gearbox, it's all belt-driven unit here. So that's turning a little bit fast. I can probably just drop it into low range here, and then I gotta turn things over by hand here. Get this, uncouple this from that drive wheel. So we're taking it from this drive, from that bull gear to this bull gear. So now this is engaged. See what our speed is. Nice and slow. Things aren't going to happen too fast. We're dealing with plastic, so we don't want to go too fast because we'll melt the thread. Also want to go too fast. Want to go too fast because a lot of things are going to be happening all at once, and we'll get this thing set up. So I'll just show you a little bit of a mock-up here on how things go. So when the lathe is running, see what we got going on here? This is following this thread rotation, so that's the ratio. So what you want to do is drop off at any one of these numbers. So if I'm dropping on a 3, always drop on a 3. If you drop on a 4, always drop on a 4. So you just do this and then drop on. Now this is advancing theoretically to create the thread. So let me just stop that. I'll back it up. I'll get a couple of passes started here and see how it goes. Okay, so what I did, you see I got a little bit of a thread in there, and I've done a scratch, and then I've set the 0, so now I know where things are at. I mean, if you guys know what you're doing with a lathe, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So now I'm going to go backwards because, so there's a 30 thou cut. That pulls this boring bar this way because you're cutting from an inside. My first scratch was on a 1, and I think I don't have to wait. I think I have to go on I either go a 1, 2, 3, or 4. I don't have to wait for the 1, but I'm not experienced enough to know the difference really, so I'm going to drop on 1. There she goes. And it should cut and line up nicely without making a mess. So if I just back the table back the slide back, I'm going to shred the thread. So I got to go in before I go out, and we'll set it up again. So I'll switch to the other camera and I'll just cut this thread. Rookie mistake. Couple of rookie mistakes. 1, forgot to hit play or hit record on the camera. 2, I had this chucked fairly loose because I wasn't too terribly concerned about how tight it needed to be and whatnot. So as a result, when I got greedy and tried to take a big cut, it popped out. So now I've completely lost my index where I'm supposed to be in my thread. There are ways to get it back because I've kind of watched YouTube myself, and that said, I have absolutely no idea how to do it. That said, also I don't have I got barely anything scratched here, and it's not a pressure thread. It's actually going to be a thread that's between 2 plastic pieces that is in the pond. So if it leaks, it leaks. But it, highly likely it's not going to. What I'm going to try to do is get this kind of lined up on its own here and see where I've got things going on here. Just doing it by hand, and I want to... Okay, I've re-zeroed things here. I'm going to try things a little different. I'm just going to leave the drive nut down on the travel engaged where it is because it's plastic. I'm not really going to sweat it too much. I'm just going to go take 10 thou, back up in reverse and see how things go. So I'm going to set my dial to 0 and run forward. Okay, used to have a pipe shop here. Pipe fittings, you name it. You clean out because you think you don't need it anymore. So I couldn't find an 1.25" nipple, which I've kind of got going on right here. So what I did was I cut an 1.25" thread on the threading machine, and I'm going to use this as a test fit. And this is perfectly way too loose, but it just catches on the bottom, and I'm putting a plastic or a nylon thread into here. So that's it. That's what I've done is what I've done here. So I now have the ultimate fun. I'll show you what I got going on here. So there's the thread a little bit. So you can just see the ABS there, and then the rest is epoxy, and it's a thread. I should have made it a little tighter, but I ain't gonna worry about it. Now, the fun part, getting this threaded bushing out of here and see how she goes without screwing that up. One step at a time. Okay, I've re-chucked this just nice and loose in here, just so she holds. And I'm going to see if I can do a little bit of tappy tap tap with a cold chisel. And as I chuck that up a little looser than I should have. Come on, baby. Maybe I can get it with my fingers. Nope. We'll just find a new place to tappy tap tap. Oh, there she comes. There she comes. There we go. Hey. Little mutilated, but it's dark where it goes. It'll be just fine. And it was basically I learned something, and it didn't cost me a trip to the hardware store. We'll now get us out to the pond and start putting the stuff together.